Well, Mary Murphy is in Hulme. She's a Labour councillor and has called us. Mary, good morning.
Good morning, Heather.
Good morning. So now then, how did you do last night then?
Brilliantly, actually. Absolutely brilliantly. And it'd be great, Heather, if you could just come onto the streets of Hulme and ask people around here what Labour councillors have done for them. I have been amazed with the election this year. This has not been a target ward. The Lib Dems have never been interested. So most of our activists were in other wards for the campaign this year. And I put out a call 10 days ago for people to help me to put a leaflet out. I've never done that before. 42 people turned up outside Kim's Cafe in Hulme a week last Saturday, and only 6 of them were Labour Party members. None of them have ever put a leaflet through a letterbox before. They came out to do it for me.
I admire your electioneering after the event, Mary, but what was it like when you first...
No, it's in response to your question, what's the Labour councillor ever done for you? People don't come out to do this stuff for you if they don't feel you're delivering.
What was it like when you first started? What were the things that you had to deal with? How many years have you been a councillor now?
14 years.
14 years. 14 years ago, what was the big problem that people were coming to you with?
God, it's hard.
Because Hulme was a very different place 14 years ago.
It was. And what was happening in Hulme 14 years ago was, and 16 and 18, for me, was I was attending forums in Hulme, getting input from local people into the regeneration process. That was probably the biggest bit of work. But from the morning after I got elected, it became very different because the work increased like 100%, really. Although Hulme's been regenerated, there's always been high levels of poverty in Hulme. And so people have struggled with all sorts of things. So
what regeneration 14 years ago, and so what is the biggest problem that people come to you with now?
Housing.
Yeah.
Housing. We don't have enough of it because Hulme's become a hugely popular place to live.
Yeah.
So, you know, in loads of senses, Hulme's changed culturally from that point of view. Because it's not all social housing anymore. When I first came to live in Hulme 25 years ago, there was no owner-occupiers in Hulme. So
that's changed.
That's changed hugely.
Okay, and what about time, Mary? How much time does it take to be a councillor if you're going to do the job properly?
It's always felt like a full-time job to me. And, you know, I can remember periods in the last 15 years when I've certainly worked more than 60 hours in a week.
Right.
Absolutely. I live in the middle of the community I represent. That does make some difference to demand on you, but I wouldn't want it any other way, really.
Oh, and what's the most unusual thing that you have been asked to help with? The one where you thought, crikey, I'm going to have to scratch my head about this one.
I'm not a business person, me. And so last year, a group of business people in Hulme approached me because they said their landlords were trying to sell their leases over their heads because they've been on rental leases for a long time. And so I got involved with them to help them to keep their shops, really, their businesses. And it took about 9 weeks. It was very intensive. But really exciting for me because the other thing I get out of this is I learn stuff all the time. I'm 66 years old and I know more about business as a result of doing that piece of work than I've ever done in my life.
That's fantastic, isn't it? What about the frustrations of it? Has anybody come to you from Hulme, asked for help with a problem, and you just couldn't make it happen for them?
There's always cases like that, but it's very seldom. That's never true about an individual who's in trouble. There's always something you can do for somebody. The biggest problems in Hulme are trying to please all the people all the time. And we've got a very robust minority of very loud, active people in Hulme who don't belong to any particular party. But we've always had a culture of protest in Hulme anyway. And sometimes you can't meet their needs. In terms of planning stuff, in terms of building. We've got a group of people that constantly scream, save the great green space in Hulme. I'm sitting here talking to you now, and I'm looking just across the road where I live at the most beautiful copse of old trees, and I look at it regularly. And right across Hulme, there are copses of trees, small green spaces.
What about the financial rewards, Mary? You're saying you do 60 hours a week some weeks. You know,
I'm a qualified professional.
Right.
20 years ago, I was earning probably 60% more than I get as an allowance for the council. We don't get a wage.
Right.
I think last year I got £16,000. I pay all my living expenses out that, plus all my expenses as a councillor, my telephone bills, car petrol. You don't get paid for the hours you work. You get a flat allowance.
So you do a 60-hour week some weeks, and you get 16 grand, and you get £16,000 a year.
Yeah, absolutely. The financial awards aren't huge. I sometimes wonder if I should just give my allowance back. I have talked about it, actually.
Mary,
and go on benefits, because I'm a pensioner, and you know, I get a reasonable benefit.
There's an old saying, Mary, that if you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. Now, clearly that's not your case.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Clearly not your case. But is there an argument to say that if you're only paying 16 grand a year, you are going to get some rubbish councillors for that money?
I've been very lucky in my life, Heather. I've never earned loads of money. I've always worked in the voluntary sector, so I've been lucky enough to work in the kind of jobs that are really important to me. Like, I worked for women. I was a founder member of Women's Aid, and I worked for Women's Aid for 9 or 10 years. I've worked with homeless young people in residential settings, helping them along with their lives. I've worked around immigration work, which is really interesting work, and you make a difference to individuals and families' lives on a daily basis when you work in those kinds of jobs.
But we've established that you're good at this, Mary, and you know there are councillors who are appalling. Do you think they're appalling because you only get 16 grand a year?
I don't think so. I really don't believe that. When I first went into the council, there are loads of councillors in Manchester still who were on the council when I first went into it. Yeah, there was no allowances. There was no allowance. I think I used to get something like £400 a month expenses if I claimed them, and I often didn't have time to claim them.
So, would you? I mean, what you know? The question with all jobs is what's in it for you, isn't it? And it clearly isn't cash. And for you, it's helping people.
I love people, Heather. You know, I grew up in an orphanage in Ireland, and so you know that was kind of my first experience of being marginalised. So you know, my motivation is social justice. Really, that's my main motivation in what I do.
How long were you in that orphanage for, Mary?
From birth till I was 15 years old. I came over to England at 15 years old. Got a job really quickly because I had a really good basic education because I was brought up by nuns. And didn't find anywhere to live for nearly 6 months. I went to work every day from Victoria Station in London. I was absolutely petrified, but I was determined that while I had the job I could keep going. But it took me nearly 6 months to find a bed in a shared room with 4 other Irish people.
Really? A shared bed? A shared room?
Yeah.
So you had a bed in a shared room and you shared one room with 4 other people?
Yeah, because it was room to let Europeans only, no blacks, Irish or dogs. So in some ways that was my second experience of repression, you know, as an Irish person, but also beginning to understand that the black people I passed in the streets in the morning were also part of that. And so, you know, I had a very good induction into what life might be like in England. And I look back now and I'm not sure how I survived that, but I must have had something going for me at the time, because here I am.
Yeah, you certainly are, Mary. Thank you so much for talking to us. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. Mary Murphy in Hulme, who's a Labour councillor, who called us this morning to talk about the life of a councillor. She does a 60-hour week some weeks, for £16,000. Not a lot of money, is it? Out of that comes all her expenses for council. You know, that's not just what you get. You have outgoings out of that. Your travel expenses, your phone. It's very interesting, isn't it? And it's interesting, I think, you know, that if you pay peanuts, generally you get monkeys. It might be a cliche, but it's a truism as well, isn't it? 0161 228 2255. What has your councillor done for you lately? Farida is in Prestwich this morning. Farida, good morning.
Good morning, Heather.
What has your local councillor ever done for you?
Well, as in my local councillor, I'm going to go with the local councillor within that we operate our business, which is called Buzzrocks Caribbean Caterers in Hulme. And we have had have been faced over a period of time some great difficulties in accessing premises, in trying to relocate our business, and what we found is excellent support from our local councillor Mary Murphy, that without her support, I'm absolutely convinced our business wouldn't be here.
Really?
Absolutely. Their intervention, or her personal intervention, actually meant that when our existing landlord, who have these original leases from the city council themselves, was trying to sell the building we occupied, which actually could have left us, rendered us very vulnerable with another landlord. Their intervention meant that we were able to stay within the premises and to secure the leasehold ourselves. Now, if we had not approached Mary, or did not make the local councillors aware, who actually had no idea what was going on, and I think sometimes that's a factor in itself. They don't always know what's going on, and they actually need us as members of the public to keep them informed of things that are happening so that they can do their intervention, because I think people don't give local councillors enough credit of what power they hold.
Right, so you think that we're all a bit lazy?
Well, I don't like to use the word lazy. I think we've become disconnected from factors which make an impact and change lives.
Do you think we don't know how to work it? What we should do is work the system, work our councillors, make them do stuff for us.
Absolutely. And I think often it's that disengagement which is disenfranchising us as members of the public with regards to what local politics can do, what national politics.
Do you think maybe, Farida, that many of us shrug our shoulders a bit too much and go, well, what can you do? Well, what you can do is contact your local councillor.
I think there is that. I think sometimes we don't know what to do, and I think when you're faced with not knowing what to do, you're stuck as to where to go or who to get help from. And I can only say that, you know, with access to the internet and the World Wide Web, believe you me, you can locate what your local councillor's meant to do, when their advice surgeries are, and all you need to do is get yourself there. And when you're not sure who it is that can help you, they have got a font of all knowledge, and they have a duty to respond. And it might be they can't help you in that one particular case, but they should be able to signpost you accordingly.
OK, Farida, thank you very much indeed. A very positive interaction there with her councillor, who helped with the relocation of her business, which Farida said there couldn't have done without the support of her local councillor, would have left her very vulnerable with a new landlord. She runs a business in Hulme. So what about you? What has your councillor ever done for you?